These are 8 exercises for my blank hurts. Remember that when one of your joints hurts, it's probably because the neighbors are not doing their job. Each of these exercises is going to restore the proper function of every joint in the body so that all your joints are doing just the right amount of work, not overworking and not underworking. So we're going to start on our back with 40 repetitions of ankle circles. So I'm going to extend one leg out and pull the other leg up, and I'm going to take my ankle in 40 nice big circles. So the ankle joint is made of 7 little bones that are meant to be very mobile. And when they are mobile, they take a lot of pressure off the work of the knee. So this is an exercise that's restoring proper function at the ankle and even the foot. Now I'm going to go 40 in the other direction. It's always best to do these exercises with your shoes and socks off so that we can really maximize the mobility of our foot and ankle. There are 26 bones in the foot and 7 bones in the ankle. And so again, this exercise, now I'm going to do gas pedals 40 times. This exercise is a super great place to start if you have knee pain, because the more flexible and supple our foot is, the less strain we have on our knee when we go for walks or workouts or runs or hikes or whatever. So we did about 40 in each direction there. So 40 circles one way, 40 the other, and then 40 gas pedals, and then I'll switch. This is best done when you're lying on your back with that opposite leg extended, but if you're not able to get on the floor, it's okay to do this from your chair or even in bed first thing in the morning. Take some nice deep breaths, and again, this wouldn't necessarily be the right exercise if you had ankle pain. If you had ankle pain, I would want you to leave the ankle alone and let it heal and maybe work the neighbors of the toes or the knees. My theory is if you have an achy joint, I don't want to increase the movement there or increase the inflammation there. I want to address what's going on in the rest of your mechanical chain or your kinetic chain that's not working properly. So 40, 40, and 40 here again on this side. All right, so then we're going to go to knee drops. And I want you to bend your knees and bring your feet really far apart and spread your arms out to the side. If you need a little pillow under your head, that's okay. Eventually, I'd rather you just let your head be right on the floor with a natural little arch in your neck. And here, my arms are just going to pin out at the sides, and I'm going to drop my knees from side to side. So now, as you can see, I'm working the hip joint. And so when my hips are mobile like this, and they are doing their proper job as rotators, this too can relieve a lot of pressure on the knees. If my knees just act as a soft hinge in the way that they were designed, and my hips are doing the brunt of the rotation, then my knee joint can be spared a lot of unnecessary inflammation. So again, we're looking to the neighbors. We're going to assume that maybe you have a little knee pain, and I want you to take care of the neighbors. We took care of the ankles already, now we're taking care of the hips. And we're going to do about 20 of these hip drops. Now, none of these exercises obviously were designed specifically for you. These are general exercises that I have found to work really well with my clients with joint pain. If you know that they are not right for you, please don't do them, or modify them. Maybe take smaller range of motion, or don't do quite as many repetitions. Okay, so next we're going to continue working on those neighbors, the hips, with some seated femur rotations. So I want you to sit up nice and tall, pull your toes towards your nose and squeeze the heck out of those quads, and then just reach back to support yourself. So here, we're going to keep the knees totally straight as you can make them. And I want you to rotate the hips by bringing the toes together, and then we're going to rotate the hips out by bringing the toes out. So even though it looks like my feet are what's moving, what's really moving is way deep up here in those hip sockets. Remember that your hip sockets have little rotator muscles in them similar to the rotator cuff. So this is working those deep rotational muscles of the hips. And I really believe that if your hips are super strong, the neighbor, the knee, and the neighbor, the lower back, are going to be in a lot better, they're going to be in a lot better position, and they're going to feel better because they're not overworking. The hips are meant to carry a lot more load and a lot more movement than we give them credit for. So these exercises are restoring the proper function of the hips. So then I'm going to do the same exact exercise, but with my feet really wide. I'm going to pull my toes to my nose, straighten my knees, lean back, and now my hips are in a little bit of a different stress, a little bit of a different stretch as well. And so you might notice that this one is a little harder. You might also notice that one leg doesn't move as well as the other, which I think means you probably need to work at this one. If you're carrying around a little tightness in one side or an old injury, you might notice that one side's a little harder than the other here. We're going to do about 20 of these sitting femur rotations. And again, this might seem counterintuitive because the exercises that we've done thus far are all great for knee pain, but we haven't done anything with the knee. We're just restoring proper function at the ankles and the hips so that the knee can just be kind of turned off. Okay, so after 20 of those, then we're going to work on the upper body a little bit. Let me turn this way. So it's going to look like a shoulder exercise. And certainly I am moving my arm on the shoulder blade, but what I want you to think about is the neighbors. Who are my neighbors here? What is the neighbor to my shoulder? My neck and my upper back. So if you're somebody that has a lot of neck tension or upper back pain because you've started to round your posture a little bit, working the shoulders in this way can be a nice way to get the neighbors in the right position and relieve some of that pressure on the neck and the upper back. The interesting thing I think about the shoulder is that it's so many different, it's the arm bone and the shoulder blade, and then the shoulder blade articulates with the rib cage. So we have 3 different bones that are kind of, I think, making up the shoulder girdle, and sometimes we forget about that shoulder blade sliding on the rib cage back there, and this just feels so good. So if you're somebody that has neck pain or upper back pain, working the shoulders in this way can be a really nice way to relieve that. Also, this is a great exercise to do if you've been sitting at your desk all day, because it reverses that rounding and that tech neck that we get from looking at our device. So 20 of those. Okay, then we're going to kind of go back to the hips. I'm a big believer that if your glutes can fire on demand in any position, you're going to have no more back pain and no more hip pain and also no more knee pain. So in this hook line position, and hook line just means that my knees are bent like this, I want you to try to isometrically squeeze your glutes. So you won't see anything happening here. I'm going to keep a little arch in my lower back, and I'm going to just squeeze those glutes isometrically like I'm hugging my hip sockets with my hands, okay? So I'm not moving anything. I'm just trying to fire those guys up on demand. And typically when we fire our glutes, we add the lower back, or we add the knees, or we add the hips. And so I want you to take all of that out of it and just teach yourself to find those glute muscles and give yourself 20 nice big hugs there through the hip sockets. Same thing, I have a little arch in my lower back, and that's normal. We want a neutral spine there in the lower back so that my pelvis and femur are in the right position here. We're just restoring the proper function and the proper mechanics and the proper responsibility of each joint. So again, the more responsibility my hips can take, and they were meant to take that responsibility, the less responsibility my lower back and my knees have to take. So this is just, again, my hips being a good neighbor to my knees and my lower back. And we're gonna try to do 20 of those. And those can be difficult. That's a tricky one to find. So if you need to, you can just kind of tap to wake them up, or sometimes extend your legs out for a few reps and find them, and then go back to the hook line position. Okay, so then we are gonna stand at the wall. And the wall is a really nice tool because it's vertical, and you know how I feel about being able to find vertical load. It restores our anatomical position. So when I'm against the wall, the weight of my head is evenly supported by my shoulders, and the weight of my shoulders and my torso is supported fully by my hips, and the weight of my pelvis is supported by my heels. Everything is in a straight line so that my load is not being overworked with a forward head or forward shoulders. When I'm in this position, not only does it look horrible, it feels horrible because my load is all being put on the front of my body, while the back of my body is under tremendous tug of war to try to pull me back. So standing at the wall is such an easy thing to do, but that's not all we're gonna do. We're gonna stand at the wall, and I want you to, with your palms against the wall, squeeze your shoulder blades. So I'm putting a juicy lemon between my shoulders, and I'm squeezing it back there 10 reps. So we talked about the shoulder blades and how they rub on the rib cage. They articulate with the rib cage to provide great stability for my overhead work. This exercise is restoring that relationship between the blades and the ribs. And it's, you know, there should be a lot of sliding and gliding back there as you do that. Having those shoulder blades locked into that forward position is bad. It hurts the shoulder movement, it hurts the strain on the upper back. So this is a nice way to just restore that. Again, if you have neck pain, this is going to be a great one for you. So speaking of neck pain, now we're going to drop that chin down. And now my upper traps, those muscles up here that we all get so tense in, are nice and long. And I'm going to just squeeze those shoulder blades again. So squeezing the middle trapezius while we let the upper trapezius, or these muscles, get nice and long and stretched. And we'll do about 10 reps there. And my heels are back against the wall, and both of my buns are back against the wall. And I'm not doing anything more than what my body wants. So again, if these are too much for you or they're not right today, just modify them or take a break and we'll move on. So now we're gonna just turn the hands this way. So same exact setup, head is back against the wall, but now palms are forward. And what I find is at the beginning, the back of my head doesn't always like to be at the wall, but over time with squeezing the shoulder blades in this way, I'm pulling my upper back and my upper spine kind of back into good alignment, and pretty soon it's just natural for my head to be on the wall. So I'm doing 10 more reps here with my palms facing forward, and then I'm going to drop my head and do 10 more. It feels so good. I tend to get a lot of tension here on the right side of my neck from just the way I sleep, I guess, or the way I work with my computer. So I can feel a nice stretch here as I'm strengthening the middle of my back and restoring the proper function of the shoulder blades and the neighboring joints there. Okay, so now I'm going to have you grab a chair and continue to work on some shoulder and neck stuff. I'm going to set a timer for us for 1 minute. And what I want you to do is sit right at the edge of your chair on your sits bones, and those are the bony little part of your butt. And we're going to make sure that those femurs are parallel to each other and that your feet are pointed straight ahead with your heels directly under the knees. And that sounds like a lot of setup, but that's okay. Now I want you to lengthen through your torso. So rather than just kind of succumb to the day, I want you to use your core muscles to lift up nice and tall, and imagine a nice line from your tailbone to the crown of your head. And then from there, with feet anchoring into the floor, we're just going to turn and hold for 1 minute. So as I do this, I want you to think again about the neighbors. So as I'm turning my shoulders, what are the neighboring joints that are getting benefit out of this? So my rib cage and my upper back are getting benefit. My hips are actually getting benefit because I'm stabilizing them with effort through my obliques as I twist into the shoulders. And my neck is getting benefit because I feel one side lengthening while I just have a nice gentle follow through kind of with my eyes here. So if you're a golfer or a tennis player or a pickleball player who tends to always work or play on one side of the body, unraveling in this way can be really beneficial. So we're just holding here for 1 minute. Now I want you to add a little bit of deep breathing. Inhale and expand, exhale and compress. Inhale and expand, exhale and compress, and then we'll unwind and get ready to switch sides. So once again, just check that those femurs are parallel, feet are anchored into the floor, and then we're gonna turn and hold for 1 minute. And maybe from this view, you can see a little better how the kind of the crisscross between this shoulder blade and this hip, and then this shoulder and this hip. So I've created a nice X or sling of musculature through my torso, which is going to be so good for my posture, and sometimes just twisting in this gentle way can relieve a lot of strain on an upper back or a neck that have started to hunch forward. This is a beautiful exercise for somebody with shoulder pain too. We're not moving the shoulders, we're just moving the ribs on which those shoulder blades are inhabited, and we're allowing the shoulder blades to kind of find a new position. And I like some of these exercises that we hold for 1 minute because it allows the brain to memorize a new position as well. So we're going to take those, inhale into an expansion and exhale into a compression. Never forcing, and I don't want you to use the chair to pull you into a deeper stretch. We're just using the muscles to pull us. All right, so that was 1 minute on each side, and we just have one exercise left. We're gonna go back to the wall to find vertical, and then we're gonna move in a plane called the frontal plane, and you might know this plane as the jumping jack plane or the snow angel plane. So I'm back here at the wall with my feet and my hips and my shoulders and my head on the wall. And now I'm gonna find a hinge point right here through my rib cage. And I'm just gonna lean a little bit to the right and then lean a little bit to the left. And the goal here is not to lean farther. The goal is to stay vertical while I'm kind of wiping the walls with my arms. And you can see that I have that 90-degree bend at each armpit. And we're just gonna go side to side here about 5 times. And when I do this, I feel great muscular work in my upper back and the rear of my shoulders. So this can be a great one for, again, somebody with shoulder pain, somebody with neck pain, because I'm using this part of my body to generate power while I let the rest of it just rest. So now we're gonna step out a little wider and do 5 more, and see if you can squeeze those legs a little bit more this time. You give yourself a strong foundation with your quads and your glutes. That's your thighs and your butt muscles, being really, really stiff and strong. And we'll just kind of sweep the wall again here for 5 reps. Don't overdo it. Everybody's amount of bend is going to be different, and every day you might find that you have a different amount of bend here. This is called a windmill. So on this third position, we're going to go really far. So there's about a yardstick now between my feet. This is as far as we're going to go. Let's do 5 more reps. Sometimes when we have overuse injuries or nagging pains, it's because we always move in one plane, and usually that plane is forward and backwards. Very infrequently do we move side to side or in this frontal plane or in a rotational plane, so that's why I like this one. All right, and then the last set is with the feet directly under the hips again. So if you have joint pain, I would encourage you to do a little detective work. Move the joints above and below the joint that hurts rather than the joint that's actually ailing, because a lot of times what that ailing joint needs is to work less while the neighbors work a little more. Those are your 8 exercises for my blank hurts. I will see you soon. And I'm glad that you guys could join in today on Facebook.